Just like you wish.
Of Ustream Producer.
So, creating a content plugin. Anybody already did something like that? Okay. What was your experience with that?
With content. I don't know if it was content.
Well, most of the plugins are always content.
One on 1.5 and one for Google Analytics.
Yeah. Okay.
This is a demonstration of
Well, the thing
Ustream
is
Producer.
that creating a content plugin, a plugin is designed to go inside your articles and transform a small piece of text, a small piece of code into something else. So basically, that is the biggest work of a content plugin. Now, it sounds easy, and in a way it is. We just have one problem. That creating a plugin
This is a demonstration of Ustream
needs a
Producer.
lot of research to get the tiniest plugin to work. Why? Well, basically, like it said, we have lots of documentation. We have the developer site, we have from Joomla, we have the API site from Joomla, we have the documentation site. And when you really want to do something, well, you end up with 3 sites telling you 3 different things.
This is a demonstration
And
of
what's even
Ustream
worse,
Producer.
that often none of those 3 sites are right. So you still don't get it to work. So like it says, there's lots of documentation, works perfectly, but it doesn't apply to your specific problem. Most of the problems with developing a plugin is not that you don't have your ideas, you don't know what you want to do. It is how to get that little thing to work. So that's what I'm going to try and do today.
Of Ustream Producer.
Basically, what I'm going to propose you, like it said on the program, it is developing a plugin from B to Z. And to me it is a Z because I'm still from Canada. Well, more or less. And what is the A? Well, the A, I have it here in my pocket somewhere. Yeah, here. That if you want it, there is a skeleton that you can use.
Ustream Producer.
So there we go. I am presenting you the plugin called PLG Skeleton. Obviously, that is not the name you're going to give it, unless you want to make a Halloween site. I don't believe that. But it contains the basic information for creating your successful plugin. Because you already have an idea of what you want to do and what you need.
This is a demonstration of
And
Ustream Producer.
Session is going to be about how to get it to work. So the sample code inside, well, it's really sample code. So what I'm going to give you is the XML file that is necessary to install your plugin, install and give it some parameters, because you might want to configure your plugin. There might need some information that the plugin needs in order to get the information you want. The skeleton PHP file on this stick, you can get it later on from a website as well. The skeleton file, the PHP file, is the one that contains all the code. Of course, you have the language files. We already talked about it in different sessions. Joomla is now translated in 46 or 64 languages. Well, it would be a pity to deliver your simple plugin or your complicated plugin in only one language without any way for anybody to translate it into something else. That's, let's say, a little bit a pity. So you give the language files as well. So you have to make sure that your code is taking advantage of that. The last part, that's the easiest file, index.html. I see that lots of people forget that little file. Why? Well, they don't think about it. But if you do think about it, that is an easy way in to your website. An easy way in for hackers. I have a different session tomorrow that will deal with that, so I'm not going into that now. Joomla will trigger different events, will use different events to trigger your plugins.
This is a demonstration
And
of Ustream
for as far as I'm
Producer.
concerned, for this plugin, this is the element that will do it. It's called On Content Prepare. In the past, it has had different names. It has been called On Prepare Content. Even within different versions of Joomla, it has had different names. So that is a Joomla triggered event. That means that this event
This
is going to be
demonstration of Ustream
triggered
Producer.
before even your code is being displayed. Your code or your content, images, text, whatever. Before it is displayed, this function will be called to all the plugins installed on your Joomla site. And that will trigger the start of your code. The plugin is organized as a single class, a single
This is a
PHP
demonstration
class.
of Ustream Producer.
I'll come to this, don't worry. A single PHP class called PLG Content Skeleton. Of course, you will rename that plugin to something else, but please make sure that it's still PLG, lowercase, content with an uppercase C, followed by the name of your plugin, starting with an uppercase letter. Otherwise, Joomla will not recognize it, and you will be
This
tearing
is a
out your hair
demonstration of
to find out
Ustream Producer.
what's going on. I already did that. So inside this plugin, we will have different functions. We have different stages that we have to go through before even starting to think about our own stuff. We have to check. Some of you have been attending other sessions about the Joomla
This is a
CMS.
demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Joomla will ask for a certain number of things to be completed before it will say, okay, this is a valid content plugin and this is what I'm going to do. The platform that we talked about in a different session, the platform can also give you access to something else than just content. But at the same time, the plugins are still all
This is a demonstration of Ustream
so what I need to
Producer.
do is to make sure that I take appropriate action if my plugin is called from something else but content. So perhaps just get out, or display a message, or take a different action, making sure that this plugin is still going to work, even if the content that we're dealing with is not really content. It's not really an article. So that is what we need to test.
This is a demonstration
right from the
of
start.
Ustream Producer.
Then load the parameters. Any parameters that we can set in the admin section of Joomla. You go to Extensions, Plugin Manager, find your plugin, and there you will have a certain number of parameters that you can set. That's the configuration, the standard configuration of your plugin. So we are going to read that. Then comes the difficult part. How to find these curly brackets
This is a
followed with
demonstration
in
of
between the
Ustream
name
Producer.
of your plugin, followed by a bunch of parameters that we can give on a per plugin basis. So we could say, okay, well, this plugin is a vertical plugin. On the same page, I have a different one. It should be diagonal, or it should be horizontal, circular, whatever. And how are we going to find that? Well, usually you could use standard PHP functions like
This is a
POS
demonstration of Ustream
that will
Producer.
find the position of exactly this part of your plugin. But if it's not a real plugin, I could talk about this in my text, and those PHP functions, well, they will fail. Simply because I am talking about it, I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about this, but not in the same place. That might mean that I will get a whole bunch of text in the middle of a plugin call. And that is considered a plugin call, but
This is a demonstration of Ustream
I don't
Producer.
I don't know what to do with that. And that will mostly result in crash and burn. That's not what you want on your website. So we are going to use for that a small regular expression. And that regular expression, well, it will simply find all the plugin calls and do everything that is necessary for me to find them and to deal with them.
This
Command
is a
lines.
demonstration of Ustream
yeah.
Producer.
Like I said, we can have a skeleton that says horizontal, vertical, circular, for example. So I need to find out what was passed as a parameter inside this plugin call. That is also something, it looks sometimes that I'm just kicking in open doors. Some people will say, yeah, I already know that. Yeah, sure. Everybody does. If you start programming, sooner or later you will have these problems.
Of Ustream Producer.
So the goal of this little skeleton plugin is to take that away from you and simply have you fill in the blanks and get you on your way with your own ideas. The last part of what a plugin will do is replace those plugin calls, skeleton something, in your text with what you wanted to display.
This is a
After that, you're done.
of Ustream Producer.
You let Joomla do the rest, and you have a working plugin. So let's try and take a look. Yeah, I think I already said this. One thing that you have to keep in mind, if you are a PHP programmer, usually you will use echo, print,
This is a
or other functions in that,
demonstration of
in
Ustream
that same
Producer.
style. Print R, print F, there's a whole bunch of them. You should not be using those, ever. Unless it is really for debugging purposes. If you use them, the text that you will echo will appear on the top of your page, and your plugin should be somewhere in the middle, perhaps. So, and whatever you do, that text is never going to be in the place where you wanted it.
This
So
is a
don't
demonstration
use
of
echo,
Ustream
print, or
Producer.
others. That's just for testing. So let's start with the language file. A language file is a fairly simple file. It has only a few pitfalls, like always. This part before the equal sign here must be uppercase,
This is a demonstration
no
of
spaces,
Ustream Producer.
no other characters, only letters, numbers, and the underscore. No slashes, no commas, no dots. When you follow it immediately with an equal sign. No spaces there either. The last part is the part that you want to show in your plugin. So there we go. That's the plugin. That is what is going to be displayed.
This is a
It
demonstration
works well if
of
you try it in
Ustream
English.
Producer.
Works perfectly. And as soon as somebody else wants to translate it into French or in German or whatever other language, they will come back to you saying, hey, this doesn't work. Because there is only one pitfall, and that you have to save this file using a decent text editor. You have to save it in UTF-8 format. As long as you don't use any, let's say, accented characters like in French,
Ustream Producer.
or like, let's say, Russian. That's a totally different character set. As long as you don't use those, it will be displayed properly. As soon as you touch an accented character, you're done. It's not UTF-8, it will display probably garbage. So that's not what you want. Save your file as an UTF-8 format file. Now we're going to develop this plugin.
This is a
And what do we what do we
Ustream
have?
Producer.
We have a development server. We're going to install the plugin, well, at least once. Why? Because we have to go through the configuration process. It has to be inscribed in the database, and we don't want to do that by hand. Even more, we still want to try out if our installation is successful or not. If it is, we can go on to the second step, and that is our
This
coding.
is a demonstration of Ustream
If
Producer.
we don't have all our coding ready yet, one thing that I don't like to do is go through successive installations of the plugin. Just do it once, and if we really need to change the code, we can copy the files either through FTP, or if you're working on localhost, just copy the files on top of the ones that you already have, and the plugin is ready to do the job with the new code.
This is a
So
demonstration
during
of
development, you
Ustream
can just
Producer.
recopy the files on top of the ones that you have, but install it at least once. That way, Joomla will know about it. So if we want to install it, well, I already talked about the pitfalls. There's a whole bunch of them. It needs the XML manifest. That file will give you all that is necessary to install it inside the Joomla environment.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
It needs the language files. There are 2 of them. We'll see which ones they are. It needs 1 or more PHP code files. That is where your stuff goes, and mine. It might need some CSS. Perhaps not. Perhaps it does. It may need additional resources like images or other things that you want to display. Might be that. Everything has to go into this manifest
is a
file.
demonstration of
That's where
Ustream
it goes.
Producer.
That's where it is declared. So let's take a look at that manifest file. It's a simple XML file. First thing you see is that it is UTF-8. Hey, that comes in handy because that means that my different texts could be interpreted straight from this XML file. That's a good idea. It also allows for file names in Russian.
This is a
or in
demonstration
German.
of Ustream Producer.
So please make it UTF-8. The second line in my XML manifest is extension. What is this? Well, it's an extension of Joomla. So that's what we are going to develop. It is made for 2.5. I'm not going to bother with 1.5 websites. That's done. The type that we are installing, the type of extension
This
is a plugin,
demonstration of Ustream
and it goes
Producer.
into content. It is specific for content. That is, let's say that is 95% of all the plugins that we use nowadays. So that's why I chose a content plugin. Then you have to say, okay, let's present this plugin a little bit. You will give it a name. In this case, give it a name, all caps, no spaces,
This is a demonstration of Ustream
and give it the name that
Producer.
you want. Just leave it at this right now. The author, you, obviously. Creation date, copyright, license, author email. I think they are pretty much self-explanatory. There's only one that might need a little bit extra. That's this one. What is it?
This is
Well,
a
it is a
demonstration
description
of
that can
Ustream
be
Producer.
translated. Just like the name of your plugin, that can be translated. the name of the plugin translated will also appear in the menus. It will appear in the plugin list. So if you can translate it, if it needs translation, that's where you do it. Next, we have to declare which files we are going to copy to the server. So, like I said, this has to be done at least once. After that, you can copy them yourself onto the server. It doesn't need any reinstallation. So, here we go. File name. The plugin parameter here declares to Joomla what the name is of this plugin. How Joomla will find this plugin. And you give it the same name .php as the file name. So wherever you see skeleton in this plugin, you will have to replace it with what you wanted it to call. Okay? An index.html file, that's the free one. Keeps the hackers a bit out, well, at least the aspiring hackers. We might need some CSS, perhaps not, and we want to put that into a folder. Let's see that for later when it comes up. And now we have the languages. ENGB for the standard English ones. Okay, perfect. And you can see that we have two of those. They look nearly the same, but they are not. One will contain all the strings that you have for inside your plugin. So that is the skeleton, the content skeleton.ini file. That one will contain all the strings that you have inside your plugin. And the skeleton.sys.ini file is the one that is responsible for the display inside Joomla. That means in the back end, when you want to configure stuff, the headings of the parameters and the parameter names and the texts and the help texts that you want to provide, those all go into this sys file. So that even that can be translated into any other language.
This is a demonstration of Ustream
Then we have
Producer.
the configuration. I kept it simple. There's many more ways to do this. It contains a config and of course the /config tag. Don't forget it's an XML file. To be valid, you have all the opening tags and the closing tags. You have the fields, and this is called params. Okay, let's go. I have only one parameter that I will call later, and it is called content URL.
This is
okay,
a demonstration
whatever name
of
it has.
Ustream Producer.
The type is text, default is none, description and label are a bit extra. You don't have to specify them, but it's always better. And again, wherever you see those uppercase strings without spaces, just underscores, we expect translation. Joomla expects a translation, or at least an English version in the language files.
Of Ustream Producer.
Any tag needs a closing tag, field set goes with field set, fields goes with fields, and that's it. Last but not least, do you remember we started off at the top with extension, type is content, type is plugin, it was a content plugin, and so on. So don't forget to add this one at the end of the file. Otherwise, Joomla will give you a nice little error message. Most of the time, you don't understand where it comes from, but it's simply invalid XML if you don't have this part next to it. So now that we can install this plugin, well, let's go to the PHP code. That's also fun. It starts with the PHP opening tag.
This is a demonstration
Nothing special with that.
Ustream Producer.
Always nice to have a copyright statement. You do like to keep your copyright in there. Like I said, I'm perhaps just kicking in open doors, but it needs to be said. This one, often forgotten by many developers. That means that if you don't specify this, you could get to this plugin code outside of the realm of Joomla, outside of the Joomla environment. So please put this in. Some people will say, okay, I will add a little message here, not allowed, or direct access not allowed. I always think that if somebody really wants to try it this way, give them no clue whatsoever. Just die. Give them a blank page. Don't make it so that they see, oh yeah, I don't have access to this. No, nothing. They want to get in an unauthorized way, make it difficult for them. So let's start with the skeleton. This is where it happens. The first one is the class. Like I said in the beginning, a plugin is everything, it's just one class. And this class extends the JPlugin class that is part of the Joomla system. Where it comes from, if it is the CMS or if it is the basic framework, doesn't matter. This is what it needs to be. Class extends JPlugin. The name, simple, PLG content skeleton. Obviously, you are going to change skeleton into something else. Make sure that you use a capital S or a capital letter for the first one of the name of your plugin. Next thing, I have a class variable that is plugin number, and I initialize it at 0. Why? We'll just see. One function that always has to be called inside this class is the construct. Okay? The construct function, what does it do? Well, it initializes all kinds of variables that are totally uninteresting to me. And the second part that it needs to do is load the language. Some people will say, yeah, but it's already loaded. I found out that it is not. So I add it, and if you do it twice, that's not a problem. But at least do it once. I have a small function in there. Function is called setPluginNumber. You remember that class variable, plugin number? Well, here, as soon as I call this function, it increments that plugin class variable plugin number by 1. I like to be clear about what I'm doing. I don't put plus plus or minus minus, which are also language constructs in PHP. I don't want to do that. I just say plus 1. At least I know what I'm seeing. Now, why do I use this?
This is a demonstration.
There is one big reason for this. It can load CSS files, but it can load them only once. So I test if this variable plugin number is equal to 1, then I load the CSS file. If it is something else, no loading. Why do I do that? If you, in HTML, start loading CSS files 36 times in a row for the same page, many browsers will simply crash.
This is a demonstration
or just discard all the CSS, including your template CSS. Ouch. That's not exactly what we had in mind. So load this CSS only once. If you have multiple plugins of the same type on your page, this variable will simply be incremented. So once for the CSS. You can hide you can do all kinds of other things with that variable. But the main purpose of this one is to make sure that I load my CSS only once. On content prepare, here we go, at last. On content prepare is the main function where by which my plugin is triggered. Joomla triggers several events, and this is the one I'm going to use. So what are we going to do? First thing we're going to do is check
This is a
here.
demonstration
Can we
of
proceed with the
Ustream Producer.
plugin? We are going to check if it is a CMS part that is called content, and we are going to check if it is an article. If it is a featured article on the front page, we have a few different variables and a few other positions, a few other problems that we have to solve. So let's just do it on content.article.
This is a
That is the
demonstration
context
of
in
Ustream
which I want to
Producer.
display the result of the plugin. If it is not, I cannot proceed, just return. And that's it. So let's just make sure that we execute this plugin in the right place and with the right type of information. Now we are going to get the parameters of the plugin. Since it is a class that extends JPlugin, I can use this params get, and hey,
This is a demonstration
there
of
it is,
Ustream
content
Producer.
URL. That is the one that I had in my XML file. Same case, all lowercase, that's what I prefer. In the back end, this content URL, like I said, it was in the XML file. In the back end, we can find it like this. If you go to Extensions, Plugin Manager, you find the plugin. This is what is going to display.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
So you fill in something else, well, it's going to be inside this variable once the plugin gets called. We have to find the plugin call inside the text. Now we can have one, that's an easy one to find, or we can have many. I publish a plugin called SimpleCaddy, and SimpleCaddy is
This is a demonstration
a
of
simple
Ustream Producer.
a simple shopping cart plugin, e-commerce plugin. In order to display a small form, a small button with the price of an article, a product that I want to sell, that's easy. But if I have 20 of them on my page, because I want to sell 20 products, well, I have to find all those plugin calls. Those plugin calls can be mixed in with images.
This is a demonstration
I don't see
of
how, but
Ustream
in
Producer.
some cases, skeleton could be inside an image, because an image is just raw data. You don't know what it is, can be anything. Chances are that skeleton is in there. Who knows? So what I'm going to do is, using a regular expression of this type, that is going to find anything that starts with a curly bracket followed by the literal word of skeleton,
This is a
no spaces,
demonstration
nothing
of
in there,
Ustream Producer.
followed by something else, who knows what, finished by a curly bracket. All of it together is case independent, so it can be lowercase, uppercase, anything, I'll find it. You can change skeleton to the name of your plugin, I already said that. The result that I want to obtain with this regular expression
of Ustream Producer.
is going to be inserted in an array that we will call matches. That's a standard one, so I thought I wouldn't change it. You will find this also on the PHP website. They will use matches all over the place, so why change it? The function that will be responsible for finding all my calls and putting them in this matches array is the preg match all.
This is a demonstration
And here we have
of
something
Ustream
new, that is
Producer.
article text. That one is one that comes from content.article. It has a property that is called text, And that is the property that contains the text of the article. So that is what I'm going to work on. Put the result in matches and preserve the order in which you found them. So we don't mix up the different plugins if we have multiple plugins on the same page. Everything will be neat and ordered inside the $matches array. Okay. Now that we have an array with all matches, what do? Well, we loop through them and see what's going to happen. Every time that we loop through this array of matches, we are going to set the plugin number. And we're going to test it. If the plugin number is equals to 1, load the style sheet. If we have one. It's not necessary, you can do without. But we do it only if this plugin number is equal to 1. Otherwise, we do nothing. The next one. Here, I should write down some kind of plugin code that we could expect.
This is a demonstration of
we could expect something if this writes. We could expect something like this. In fact, we could expect anything. The only thing that I do know is that it has to start with skeleton. That's all I know. So what are we going to do? If we find a line, we are going to take everything between the opening and closing curly bracket. That is my line. So the first thing I will have to do is clean it up. Replace all the spaces that I find by a non-breaking space. Don't worry, I'm going to take that out again.
This is a demonstration of Ustream
now
Producer.
That I have, replace all the HTML spaces that I could find, because this HTML editor, this WYSIWYG editor, whichever one you have installed, has a very let's say unforgiving habit, that is to insert HTML in all kinds of places. Non-breaking spaces are part of that, and if I want to do something with this command line, non-breaking spaces are not part of what I want. So I'm going to take them out and replace them by spaces, standard spaces. The next thing I'm going to do is replace those standard spaces by an ampersand. So now I end up with a line that contains everything in one spot. So it will, in my case here, it will contain type equals dummy, param equals 21.
This is a demonstration of
and in the middle it is ampersand. Now that looks very much like a standard URL. If I do it this way, I can release a function on it here that is called parseString. I take the line that I created. I forgot that I always transform it into lowercase, so I don't have to test on uppercase, lowercase, or mixes of them. I don't want to know. I just pick everything on lowercase, and at least I'm sure that I know what I'm looking at. This line, this function, it's a PHP function. It transforms a URL parameters command line into an array. That's exactly what I need. If I put it into an array, well, I can loop through that array, and the array will look like something like harms. That's what I called it. Type, in this case. And if I do it like I wrote it here on the board, the type would be dummy. It's a simple array. Looping through it gives me all the parameters with their values. It also means that I can add as many parameters as I want. No problems there. If I need something extra, I don't need to make any changes to this code. It will work right off the bat.
A ViewStream producer.
I also like one specific thing. If there's no parameter specified, at least take a default parameter and set it. So in this case, if no parameter is set for the parameter name type, create one and call it, well, in this case, Joomla. We'll see what it's going to do. Once we get there, we have a pretty good idea of what this plugin needs to go and do in order to work.
Producer.
The parameters are there. The plugin is working, more or less. What am I going to do with this type parameter? Well, it's a favorite of mine. I use it in all my plugins because my plugins can do different things at the same time. A plugin can propose a skip button, it can propose a buy now, it can propose
This is a demonstration
next,
of
it
ViewStream
can propose
producer.
previous, empty my cart. It's all the same plugin. The only thing that I change is type equals something. So that is obviously something that you have to give to your users so that they can know what they will have to do with it. The different types that we have here, okay. Parameters, type, do a simple switch on it. And in this case, I have 3 types of my plugin. Those 3 are the ones that are going to work. It would be easy to say, okay, well, $this and replace this by $type or $params type. So that it'll go at once, it's indirect. Yeah, works perfectly. Except I have one problem. If somebody types in garbage, the plugin will crash and burn. And at the same time, I want to make sure that what people type in is something that I intended to work.
Producer.
So the switch case here gives me 3 cases, one being Joomla. Hey, I defined that one just before. It's not the default one. One is text, one is other. The default one is making sure that the plugin understands that you typed in garbage. You can word that the way that you want, but you can see here, JText, this plugin type is not supported.
A ViewStream producer.
So from there on, and just give it, oh yeah, I forgot. Just give it the name between parentheses, give it the name that you typed in. It might be a simple mistype, or it can be that you have somebody typing in something to find something that you don't want him to find. So just make sure that everything works in a nicely strict way. The last part,
This is a demonstration of ViewStream
the last
producer.
part for it to work is take article text. Article is a parameter that we got from onContentPrepare. Do a replace of all the plugin calls that we have found using the regular expression that we defined just before. Put it in the variable HTML.
This is a demonstration
Take
of
from
ViewStream
what you
producer.
found, sorry, take what you found in the parameter HTML and put it back into article text. So by now we still haven't displayed anything, but the content has been prepared. And every single occurrence of curly brackets, skeleton, type equals something has been replaced by something else. Now we are ready to display it. Return false.
This is a demonstration
If you return
of
true
ViewStream producer.
or just return, it'll give you a floating 0 somewhere in your content, and you will wonder where that thing comes from, because you have no echoes, you have nothing. Well, it would be from this. So return false, and finish your on-content prepare function. From there on, it's all yours. We just need our own functions. You remember the case statement
of Ustream Producer,
where I had this followed by other, or Joomla, show other? Well, these are your functions. This is what you do. That is yours. The only thing that you have to make sure of is that instead of saying echo, this was interesting, no, you return it as an HTML string. So this, you can format it in any way you like. It can be a form, it can be anything, as long as it is valid text, valid HTML. Your function finishes by return HTML. That is what you're going to replace the plugin call in your text with. Once you have that, it's done. These, well, I told you the sample code would be really small samples. This is the sample code.
Of Ustream Producer.
So you can do whatever you want. Forms, query the database, query other sites, insert, for example, RSS feeds into your content. No problem. That is all up to you. Why do I do all this? Well, the thing is that I have seen Joomla developers developing plugins. It is the Joomla code, so that first part, that will be mixed with their own code, calling back to other code, finishing up by sending the regular expression back to Joomla at the end of all kinds of other code. My idea for that is that you will not maintain it. So this plugin, what will it offer you? It will offer you a way to say, okay, I have the top block is the Joomla management part. The only thing that I put in there is the name of the plugin and the different types of the plugin that I want. That's the only part that I put in there. All the rest goes in separate private functions that are mine. Oops. So when it is mine, it means that it is yours, and it is up to you to define whatever you need your plugin to do. So there's a big separation between the mandatory Joomla code and your own. Using that method, Joomla 3.0 is on its way next Thursday. This was Joomla 2.5. Let's imagine that on-content prepare takes another parameter. If you don't give that parameter to the plugin, Joomla will crash.
Of Ustream Producer.
Or this will crash. So the only thing that you have to update is the function call. If it says on-content prepare to, for example, just change the function name and you're set. Your own code doesn't have to change, unless you use specific Joomla functions that also have changed. That's a different problem. As far as the plugin goes, this one can live for 10 years through I don't know how many different Joomla versions,
Ustream Producer.
And you have to change only minimal things to keep it running. If you want to download it, here is the address. You'll get a small zip file. If you want it immediately, I have it here on a stick. And if you don't, download it. From here on, you have a perfectly working plugin. Okay, it's minimalistic. The goal was not to define a hugely complicated plugin. It was just to make sure that your plugin is going to work. Any questions?
First, Henk, I just want to say great job.
Thank you.
I've worked my way through Mark Dexter and Louis Landry's Joomla programming book all the way, and I'm starting through the second time now. And that's the clearest, simplest, most direct explanation of how to write a Joomla extension that I've seen in that.
This
4
is a
years I've been
demonstration
member.
of Ustream Producer.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
The only question, well, maybe not the only question, but the first question I can think of, when you did your string replaces for the spaces,
Yes.
you did it in 2 steps. Why did you do that in 2 steps? Why didn't you just do find the non-breaking space characters and just change that to an ampersand?
There's one step missing. Using Simple Caddy, I get all kinds of
This
people
is a demonstration
asking me,
of Ustream
why is this
Producer.
not working? It's displaying properly, it's working properly, and the editor put in a span tag, span something, and a slash span in the middle of the plugin call. So that is something that should be taken out as well. Why do I do this? Let's go back to this if I can. Does that work? Yes. There it was. So, the editor could put in
This is
non-breaking
a demonstration
spaces.
of Ustream
You see the
Producer.
ampersand here? If I replace it immediately by a single space, I keep this part of the non-breaking space, breaking everything that I want to do. So I clean it up. First the non-breaking spaces, get them out of there. I could add one function before I use this. I could add a function that filters out all HTML. Might come in handy. Some
This is a
people
demonstration
found
of
the plugin
Ustream
calls
Producer.
replaced with here a B or strong. Now that's nice. It didn't display, doesn't do anything, but it breaks the code. So here I try to just sanitize this whole line and make sure that what I get is what I really wanted, and filter out all the rest. So replace this by standard spaces, then replace the standard spaces back to the ampersand, because this
is a
function
demonstration of
works
Ustream
on
Producer.
a URL type parameter line. So it's ampersand variable name equals something. Ampersand variable name equals something. So this is the simplest way to do that. I don't want to write my own functions for this. This one does it perfectly, under the condition that all the spaces have been replaced by this. That gives me my only limitation for my plugin parameters is that the plugin here,
This is a
the
demonstration
type or
of
the param
Ustream
here,
Producer.
cannot contain a space. That's the only thing that I cannot do. All the rest, possible. Any other questions? Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Perfect. Coffee time.
Also, if it was a mixture of non-breaking spaces and regular spaces, the second line would clean it both at that point.
Yes.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
The URL.
At the end.
Ah, yeah, sure. So this is a principle that I use for Simple Caddy, and the upcoming version is going to use this extensively, because the new version of Simple Caddy will be only plugins and one component to manage the data
This
in the
is a
admin section.
demonstration of Ustream Producer.
So I definitely had to find a way to do this at minimal cost and maximum efficiency. So this is what I found.
So, one thing that I was looking for when you were going through the manifest file was like, there's that method equals upgrade that I think you have for components, or, there's that
Yeah.
parameter for upgrade. And it sort of hit me that isn't there for plugins, it's probably not there for modules either, is that correct?
This is a demonstration
I
I
of
believe that it's
Ustream
not
Producer.
used.
So that's only a feature of components. to
Yeah, yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah.
Will Simple Caddy, will the new version of Simple Caddy that, is going to be one component and a bunch of plugins, will it have a ability to upgrade those plugins in the future if they change the name of it through that?
Yeah.
Can the component help with that?
The component will use the upgrade methods. Plugins are usually simply
This
replaced.
is a demonstration
But the
of
component
Ustream
can't-
Producer.
If I'm a simple-minded user and Joomla 4.0 comes out and they've changed, the API a little bit,
Yeah.
I can upgrade the component from SimpleCaddy, but if I don't upgrade the plugins separately, it won't work.
Perfect.
And so you've got to give me some instructions somehow, some way that says, hey, you got to go ahead and download the plugin too if you want the new version to work. That's right, the component won't, isn't.
This is a
doesn't have any-
demonstration
no way
of
you can upgrade
Ustream
a plugin
Producer.
through a component like that.
That's correct. But you know what? I don't like to give you those instructions.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is put it in a package file. Joomla 2.5 and I hopefully 3, 4, 5 and so on, they accept package installation files. So my component, my module, my 35 plugins, I put them in one zip file with one package installation
This
manifest.
is a demonstration
So
of Ustream
You
Producer.
put that one into your extension manager in Joomla, upload it, and it replaces all that is necessary for component, plugins, modules, everything. So you don't have to think about that.
Now, what if I already had it installed and I just saw the little, the little flag that I need to upgrade my component?
Just upgrade. And if I upgrade it with the same stuff,
Will the package,
This
will
is
the
a
upgrade
demonstration
feature
of
hit the
Ustream
package and
Producer.
upload and-
Yes.
And it'll upgrade the plugins too?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
and if there is no upgrade, I still have to provide them. So I will be upgrading with the same version, with the same files, if there is nothing to be done.